What is up, everybody? We are live. If you don't know already, I'm Dr. Riley Renfro. I'm the owner of Origin Chiropractic, and I'm here to share another awesome webinar with y'all. I don't know if you noticed, if you're from Princeton here, or you're in the area, it was gorgeous today. Absolutely gorgeous. Spent some time outside. We really loved it. I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes to kind of jump on here and get settled, get you a nice hot tea. I know, especially our parents out there, you're probably just now getting done with the bedtime routine, getting the kids down, and you're ready to really de stress, which is awesome for you. So grab your tea, get you something to write some notes down if you're the note taker type. Um, I really love to just listen, so um, totally understand that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're talking about something that comes with the beautiful weather and the gorgeous spring that I love here in Texas. We're going to talk about allergies, and we're going to talk about asthma, how they're related, and how they're different in some ways. Now, oftentimes these two topics, I'm going to bring them together, and they're going to kind of bleed into each other because they're so closely related as far as the way that the body works. But let's just dive in. So the big thing about both of these topics is they are some of our heaviest hitters when it comes to families, and it's not just our kids, because it is huge in our kids and we have a big problem with it, but it's also our adults and other family members that are feeling constantly congested. Their eyes are always running, they're itchy, they are maybe they feel like their ears are clogged or that they're not draining, and they got all this pressure and it leads to sinus headaches. We've got people all around the world, but especially all around the US, that are constantly on some sort of over the counter medication for allergies, that are constantly on prescription medications. We've got kiddos and adults that are getting multiple shots a week to try to help combat these, and they're still struggling. So, we want to talk tonight about some natural ways and the role that chiropractic can play in helping to alleviate some of those symptoms and give you a little bit more control over your life, especially during such a beautiful time of the year. So let's dive into allergies first, and asthma is gonna be right in there with this as well. So there'll be times when I kind of single them out, but for the most part, it's gonna be really similar information. So when we start talking about this topic, one of the first things I'm always going to go straight into is our immune system. Because after all, the immune system and our body's ability to get rid of things like allergens, the dusts, the pollens, the cedar wood. If you're from around here, people are always talking about the cedar and other pathogens in the air. This includes viruses and bacteria, obviously, when we're talking sinus infections that are often coming with these issues. Um, Now, our immune system is really broken down into two big units. You've got the biggest part, which is about 80% of your immune system, is going to be your gut. This is that full digestive center, the digestive tract that is going to take these pathogens, all of this, as it comes in your nose, your ears, and your throat. It goes down into your digestive system, and it is broken down by all these trillions of incredible gut flora and bacteria in your natural gut biome that are going to break this stuff down, and then your body's going to get rid of it just like it gets rid of everything else. Now, um, a lot of times what happens is we'll have some dysfunction in that process, and we're going to talk about how that happens. But first, I want to go into the asthma side of things. Similar idea. Now, we've got our lungs. They're designed to open up, breathe in that fresh air, right? Capture oxygen molecules, get rid of all the stuff we don't want out of our bloodstream. But sometimes, especially whenever we're having this strong response or we're getting this constriction of the sacs and the vesicles inside the lungs, they're squeezing down and they're not able to get enough air in, We start to feel this sense, this tightening. We feel these short breaths. We're not really able to catch our breath. A lot of times, if you're an anxiety sufferer, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because you feel anxious, you feel stressed, like you just can't get that air in. So our asthma people and our anxiety people, they have that in common. Now, why would this stuff happen? Why are we having these responses that are leading to the need to have things like rescue inhalers with corticosteroids and all these anti-inflammatories and antihistamines and everything else? Um, we're going to go back to the nervous system. When you talk in our office, we're a pediatric, family-based office. We love working with families of all shapes and sizes. We're always going to bring it back to the source. So we've got our nervous system. And just like with the immune system, there's two sides to the nervous system. We've got on one side, we have what we call our sympathetic. This is our high stress state, our fight or flight response. The side of our brain that takes over in a dangerous situation like an animal attack or when you pull out and you didn't see that car coming and all of a sudden you got to hit the brakes real quick and you get that rush of adrenaline and cortisol. That's the side that comes in to protect you. Then you have the other side of your nervous system. We call this our parasympathetics. Now, this is super, super important because it's where we want to spend a lot of our time. This is our resting, our digesting, our healing, the growth centers of our nervous system. And what I often find, especially with our kiddos who are coming in um, between the ages of 5 and 8, usually, sometimes older, sometimes younger, depending on just how much struggle they've got, that are coming in, they're having these issues with allergies and asthma to the point that they're on daily medications or they've got some other way that they're constantly combating this. We go all the way back to the birth because we find that these kids get locked into a state of stress at some point. Most of the time, the biggest stressor in their life has been the birth process, but they are stressed. Their nervous systems are tapped. They are stuck in fight or flight. They have a hard time shifting over into that resting, digesting side of their nervous system. And it's going to be very impactful. And what it leads to is the main problem for both of these issues. And that is an overactive, hypersensitive immune system. Now, when we look at allergies, those pathogens come in through the nose or the throat, and our body is meant to tag it. So we've got our immune system, right? It's going to tag these molecules, most likely for excretion or getting rid of them. And a lot of times that's going to be your snots, your coughs, your sneezes, all of these ways that we get them out. But what happens whenever we're stuck in that fight or flight response, we are going to have a miscommunication between the nervous system that's controlling everything in your body and those processes. So what we see is we see this hypersensitive reaction where now we're producing more mucus. We're having more congestion. We're really stopped up. Our ears get clogged. They're not draining properly because all of that musculature has locked down, closed up all those openings, or produced too much mucus and it can't flow through, and we're miserable. We get pressure, we get headaches, our kiddos are constantly snotty, they've always got boogers, maybe they're more likely to get their respiratory infections because that stuff's not moving through. We end up with sinus infections. And so we've really got to make that shift out of that side of our nervous system. Now, how do we do something like that? How do we make that big shift? The absolute best way that we can do that is with a chiropractic adjustment. To get in there, to get some function into that nervous system, reconnect that body with that brain so that that immune function can happen the way it should. Because when it does, those pathogens come in. Yes, maybe we get some mucus production because our body does not like whatever is invading, but it drains, it makes its way into the gut, it gets destroyed, and it makes its way out. Anytime that process is broken up and we're getting stuffy and congested and nasty, it really is tough and it takes a big toll on people. It sucks away from their energy. It impacts the way they react with other people because they feel miserable, honestly. And so the chiropractic adjustment is meant to reconnect that body so that that system can shift back into a nice balance where we can heal, we can grow, but we're still ready for that fight or flight response when it is time, because there's going to be a time for it, and there's going to be important times to have that response. Even if it's, I always love to talk to kiddos about sports, because you need that fight or flight response for those sports too, that big moment where you're going to make that play. You want to be amped up and ready to go, but you want to be able to go to sleep that night because you got to recover. Because especially this time of year when you're in your baseball or other sports that have multiple games a week, you got to be ready pretty quick. So you got to recover quickly and be ready to go again. So, other ways that we can combat seasonal allergies. So when we're talking allergies too, I want to make sure that we're clear. We're talking these seasonal allergies. We're not talking so much food allergies or anaphylactic reaction type allergies. We're talking about these seasonals, these pollens, the the everything that's floating in the air, dust, all of that stuff. But when we're having when we're trying to combat it, there's a couple of natural remedies that we can use as well. One of my absolute favorites is elderberry syrup. Now, the elderberries themselves are a great immune support, but along with it, we carry one in the office that uses local honey to sweeten it, to make it a little bit more palatable. That's from White House Kitchen here in McKinney, just down the street. They make an incredible product. They use all local honey. It's phenomenal for your allergies. That brings me to the next one: is the local honey. You can do a tablespoon or a teaspoon, morning, night, or however you want. But it's really important that when you're looking for honey, that you get it from a local source, because what you want, or you want bees that have picked up that pollen and have used it to make that honey, so you can get a small dose of that through your gut, so that your body is just a little more ready to handle that allergen. Now, other things, anti-inflammatory diets. When we were talking about this oversensitive, overreactive system, we're talking about an inflammatory response that is ready to go. By the way, being shifted into that sympathetic state, that high stress state, is going to increase your chances of having more and more frequent responses and inflammatory responses. Now, an anti-inflammatory diet, we want to talk about things like cutting out unnecessary dairy products, right? We want to talk about cutting out processed sugars and sugars that are just unnecessary to bring in during that time. And it's always great to carry this type of diet throughout the year, but especially during this time of the year whenever your body is already having such a hard time coping with everything around it. On top of that, we talked about how important the gut is in general, and obviously diet goes with that, but we want to make sure that we're supporting that gut biome, right? The bacteria and the flora inside that gut that are good, that are on our team, that are helping us break down food and helping us break down these invaders. So, great ways to get a boost to your gut biome. Obviously, anything that has probiotics in it, but especially ones that don't contain dairy. I know a lot of times we think of yogurt right off the bat, but there are some really, really incredible sources of that probiotic outside of supplementation and outside of dairy products like yogurt. One of those being kombucha. I love to get a couple of those a week, and just one, you get to enjoy them and they're delicious, and two, they're great for the gut. You can get into some kimchi. I know that's like it's like a spicy sauerkraut. Obviously, regular sauerkraut as well. Anything that has that uses that fermentation process, those are all really incredible. And then obviously, if it's harder to get it through foods, maybe you don't like any of those, you can find some really, really awesome supplements uh, that have the flora in there as well. Now, on top of that, anytime you're talking about the immune system, we're going to talk about vitamin D. We're going to talk about keeping our stress levels down. We're going to talk about getting outside, exercising, getting some sunlight, because it's the best way to really, one, feel better. Go outside in the sun. Tell me you don't automatically feel better. But two, it provides your body with all kinds of awesome stuff that it needs. Now, on top of these, anytime we're talking about health, we're going to talk about hydration, staying nice and well hydrated. Water plays a huge role in all this process. Whenever you get dehydrated, it increases that inflammatory response. You're going to make thicker mucus. It's going to be harder to travel. It's going to have a hard time cleaning stuff out. And you just feel junky. You're going to end up with a lot of just not feeling great because you're super dehydrated. Those are really our big ones. Um, I can never stress this last point harder. This is, if you take nothing from what I have said during this entire talk, except for this last moment, just soak it in for a second. Just hear it. If you're note taking, feel free to rewind this and write it down, but I just want you to hear it right now. When you have dysfunction inside of your central nervous system, that's your brain and spinal cord, if there's dysfunction and there's imbalance in the way that that system works, it is going to lead to dysfunction inside of the body and the immune system. The immune system is going to struggle. It is not going to respond properly. And you're going to end up with these hypersensitive reactions. And you are going to end up having just all of this cascade um, come down. So, what we want to remember, dysfunction or imbalance inside of the nervous system leads to dysfunction or imbalance inside of the immune system, which is going to lead to an improper response, similar to what you're going to get with allergies and asthma. And so, if you can take anything from this, is get that system checked. In our office, we use state of the art insight scanning technology through CLA that is really designed to give me a great picture of how well your brain and your body are communicating. And if we're stuck in that fight or flight, if we're not, if we're nice and balanced, which is where we want to be, if our energy levels or our body's adaptability reserve is high and we're ready for any situation that we need, or if it's low and we're really prone to these inflammatory responses and illness. So I would love to see you guys in the office. Be sure to tag anyone or add anyone to the comments section if you think that they would benefit from this webinar. I'm going to scroll down real quick, see if I can see the comments this time. Awesome, Justin, I see you, brother. Appreciate it. Let's see. Hey, Allison, long time no see. How have you been? All right. I don't see any questions. If you're watching this back and you're like, man, I really wish I was live to ask that question, go ahead and throw it into the comments section. I would love to reach out to you and answer that for you or get you any support if maybe you're in a different area. I would love to get you to an awesome family-based pediatric family chiropractor that's going to assess that nervous system and make sure that you and your family are ready for everything that life can throw at you. You guys have an awesome night, and I can't wait to see you soon.